It's Wednesday, so we're back here with the QC Sportsnet boys. Got Grant Dahlstrom and Joe Winkle. No Tuesday games in the Western Big Six. Let's look back on that weekend, starting out Friday night. The big win for Rock Island over Moline, 59-42 to even things up in the standings and kind of get some payback from that earlier loss this year.
Yeah, it was easy. It was, I would say, by far the best game I've seen Rocky play this season. Now, I haven't seen them as much as our good friend Ken Jacoby. Hi, Ken. I have not seen them as much as he has, of course, but they were incredibly dialed, and it was back and forth. Moline did a really good job of keeping tight, keeping within arm's length throughout the first half, but once Rocky got up double digits in the second half, they were really able to kind of stretch out and force Moline into some turnovers, and Arthur Abbey and Devin Marshall were both really, really good. I thought Avion Thomas as well was really good. He's a very underrated player for what they want to do, and it was just a really good win for a Rock Island team to now make it a dead sprint here in the final week and a half by the time we get to Friday for the conference season.
UTL's picking up a win against Galesburg at home. What about that result?
Well, they scored 70 points in the game. That's the most they've scored in a game all season. So you leave that game feeling pretty good about your offense. Now, in the fourth quarter, they weren't scoring points. I don't know the word, maybe ideally. They scored 17, all of which from the free throw line. But it was still, they just rode the course of the game, and they did their thing and never let it get too close, never let it get too out of control. They were up, I think, 41-17, 41-19, somewhere in there. I think in the near the halftime range of the game. So they were in control for most of the night, and it's a good win over a Galesburg team that has been scrappy in some phases this season. So the Panthers will be feeling good about that one, and that made a back-to-back wins for them for the first time since December. So a lot to be happy about with the way Friday night went.
Can we keep it on them for a minute? I'm curious on your thoughts. We kind of touched a bit. So I remember fresh off Christmas, early in January, we were talking about all three teams we cover were struggling, losing a few games, and UT was losing some games, but to really good teams. And I thought they were playing some of their best ball after they kind of turned a corner in December. They had the tough loss to DeKalb, and then in the DeKalb tournament, they lose those last two games, but one was to Neuqua Valley, who's a top 6 or 7 team in the state, and then the second DeKalb game was shorthanded, and then they lose to Normal Community, who's really good. And we kind of talked like, yeah, they're going through some lumps, but they could peak maybe at the right time. Do you think that's still? I mean, I think that's still on the board for them. Obviously, they haven't played their best up to this season, but there's no better time to peak than right when you get into the home stretch of the season.
Yeah, they have won 3 in a row now, and I still think they, like you said, yet to peak because they were losing to good teams. Then I don't want to say that they tried to change what they were doing, but they really weren't. Their communication was off, their execution was off, they were throwing passes where guys weren't. So it just seemed like they were thrown out of the rhythm. Now I think they're getting some comfortable wins and maybe having opportunities to get back into that rhythm. And now with 3 straight wins, I think they're hopefully just building closer to that as we get to the end of the regular season. And I think you just continue to hope that they have a couple of games where they maybe a big win over a really good team. They'll have a chance to do that against Rock Island next week. So there's games on the horizon where they'll have the opportunity to get a late season signature win. But other than that, I think that they've still just played a very steady brand of basketball over the last 3 games that have done enough to get 3 wins over 3 teams that they should beat. So that's been good, and I think that they can keep on building off of it.
Yeah, and the biggest thing for them, too, is they're going to host the postseason. They get the regionals at their place. We'll learn like the seedings and brackets and stuff, I believe, next week. But that's, if they can go into the postseason, on a surge, maybe get an upset win over it's down the stretch here. Obviously, they play Rocky next week, which is a big one for them. Then yeah, getting to host that regional could be a big swing for them.
Getting close to that postseason basketball. It was some tough results, though, for Moline and Rock Island in Normal this weekend, where you were at the Midwest Crossroads Shootout. Let's start with the Maroons. It was kind of like that third quarter is the issue for them. That was the issue against Rock Island, and it was the issue against Peoria.
Yeah, they were. It was a really fun game. Peoria's a really young team. They got a senior who's a very tough cover inside. just as like a good defender and a great rebounder, and they really beat the Maroons up on the glass. Moline got out to an 8-point lead early, and then Peoria started to hit some shots. Moline weathered the storm, though, at the end of the second quarter. Brady Welch was incredible. He was involved in everything in the first quarter, dominated it. Was a part of every basket outside of one in the first half for the Maroons, and it turned out that was actually the case for the entire game, which we'll get to in a second. And Josh Hendricks was everything you want in a second fiddle right beside him. They were both fantastic throughout the entire game. The problem is that was just really the first time this season where they would have two guys like that be on the ride, and nobody else could really get into any sort of rhythm. And it's a few things, but whether it's certain, sometimes you're going to have that in a high school game where it's just two guys that are getting all the shots funneled to them. So it's going to look very lopsided. But I do think there are some moments where I think this is a stretch, hopefully, for Moline to close the season where they can get some guys to maybe get some confidence back a little bit in the offensive side. Outside of Josh and Brady on Saturday, they only had 3 total field goals made, and Josh and Brady combined for, I think, 44 of their 57 points, and Brady was a part of every field goal except one. He scored or assisted on every basket except for one in the game. So they just they're still trying to find a bit of an identity when it comes to getting others involved. Sometimes it's there, but it's also inconsistent, and I think that comes with some of the inexperience that they've had throughout the year. But again, it was that third quarter. They're down 1 at half, 12-0 run in the first 2.5 minutes of the third quarter for the Lions to get a lead, and it was just tough for Moline. And we've talked about that all year. It's tough for them to dig themselves out of holes. We saw that on Friday. We saw it again on Saturday.
And Rock Island played one of the harder teams to play in the entire country. Chaminade is where NBA champion Jason Tatum went to high school, and also Matthew Kachuk, who plays hockey. So
Stanley Cup champion.
Some star-studded alumni from Chaminade, 92-58, and 33 of the 58 were from Arthur Abbey. So a good game for him,
yeah.
but just not for the Rocks.
It was one of the more – it was a tale of 2 days. And so Rock Island on Friday was the best I've seen them. It was one of the first times for me to see them and be like, okay, this is the blueprint of how they can be incredibly successful through the playoffs as well, through the postseason. Because, to be frank, when the brackets come out, the top half of the sectional that all of us are in, it is brutal. Usually it's spread out. And it's still brutal on our side, but it's brutal on both sides. This year, I'm not saying weak on the down south where you have Edwardsville and Alton and all those other schools, because Alton's pretty good this year. They gave Rocky a good run. There's still some tough teams down there, but my goodness, every team that's awesome is so you've got Peoria, Richwoods, Normal Community. Those teams are going to flirt with 20 wins. Rockies are already at 20 wins. Moline is going to have a chance to get to 20 wins. UT could have 18 wins, maybe 19 wins, and they're going to be no better than the 5 seed because they've lost twice to Moline. They still got one more game against Rocky. So, those are the types of teams you got to go through in the playoffs. And I was like, all right, Rocky's getting at a pace now. They had won 10 in a row to where this is going to be what I can see them really succeeding in the postseason. Saturday was the first time where it was okay, a lot of their bad habits kind of showed up again. What I mean by that is this. Offensively in that game, once they got down double figures, the ball started to stick. There wasn't that good ball movement. What they did a really good job of on Friday against Moline, I'm going to get kind of technological here, but just kind of ride with me while I drive this boat. They were doing They were doing a really good job of whoever was being the primary ball handler, whether it was Arthur Abbey or other times it was Avion Thomas. They would get to the nail, which is the middle of the free throw line, and they would run a lot of their offense to get to that, and then they would have other guys off ball backdoor cut, or they would swing it to get good shots. We talked about a key in that Moline game. How do you kind of flip the script in that first meeting when you shot 2 of 20 from 3? They only made 2, but do you want to know what the difference was? They shot probably less than half of what they did the first time. They probably only shot 9 or 10 threes in the second game. So they still only made 2 or maybe 3 on Friday, but they shot way less. That means they're getting much more quality opportunities on the offensive end. Their offense had a purpose. I was like, okay, this is a team that I can really see doing damage. And it's still not that – I'm not saying they can't, because the team they played on Saturday, they're awesome. They've got a kid who's going to Omaha. There's a 3-star guard who's really good, and they've got young dudes everywhere. They're big. They're strong. Everyone can score. I'm just saying that some of the habits that I saw, that was kind of like, they were, the way they played defensively got beat up a little bit. And against a team like that, it will, but against other teams, it won't, because you're not going to have 5 guys out there that can score anywhere on the court, and 2 of them being like 6'7", and one's the 6'8" kid who's built like a left tackle. So, I mean, it's a bit matchup issues, like the way Rocky plays defense. That's kind of where they got to him. But offensively is where I was like, okay, that was a bit underwhelming just because Lawson Zulu really struggled. Devin Marshall had a pretty solid game, but again, we talked about it, 33 of their 58 came from Arthur. So in games like that, when they face competition like that against teams who have 3-4 guys that can score, like a Normal Community, like a Peoria Rich Woods, because those are the teams that are probably going to be the top seeds when it comes to the regionals. Rocky has a shot to obviously be in that hunt, especially now that they beat Moline in the second game. So we'll just see how the coaches seed it. But they're going to have to win a regional. They're going to have to go through one of them. So those are going to be the things that, even if the defense sometimes isn't at full bore, their offense can be. And seeing what I saw Friday, I was like, this is good. I want to see more of it. So it was a little disappointing to see it kind of come unraveled a bit on Saturday, but I do know, look, the team they played, like I said, they would have beat.
Yeah.
They would have beat a lot of teams in the country the way they were playing, but they're also really good. So they play a national schedule. They're a really good team. It's probably by far the best team that anyone in the conference has played this year, if I had to guess. So tip of the cap to them, and Rocky will be fine. It's just what I saw in that game was, when they had to chase, it's like, okay, hopefully those things don't stick, and hopefully they can get back to what they were doing, because they had 110 straight before that, and they were playing really good, and what I saw Friday was really positive for them in the future.
And credit to Rock Island for playing that game, too, for
Oh my
scheduling
God,
that
yeah.
game.
It was not, that outcome is not at all what I had on my bingo card. The game was so fast. It was such a fun watch just to see them operate at that, and Rocky was keeping, I know, they got down like 9 or 10 early, and they were keeping pace, but then all of a sudden, like, they cut it to like 12 at one point in the third, and I'm like, all right, Rocky had some stops, and then all of a sudden, Chaminade had like a 14-0 run, and like it felt like 5 seconds. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, this one's over, folks. But it was a sight to see. It was one of the best performances I've ever seen in a high school game from a team. So I'm not taking anything. I'm not saying what Rocky is just doomed forever. I was just wanting to point out some of the stuff that it was like, okay, hopefully this is just a one-off. I mean, the defensive thing, yes, they're not gonna give up 92 again, most likely. Like that, I would be stunned. The offensive stuff, I mean, I know they still scored 58. The game had that many possessions, but I just want to, hopefully those aren't some habits they can just kind of shake. Because again, Friday against Moline, they were spectacular.
Good weekend for UT to close out with a win at Pekin on Saturday.
That made it the 3-game winning streak, which is just what we kind of talked about a few minutes ago. They just built on it again. They'll have a chance to build on it on Friday against Geneseo. But I don't know if there's much to say about this one, because UT went into Pekin. It's a down year for the Dragons. The Panthers had some turnover issues earlier in the game, but flattened that out and ended up just playing another smooth, collected game, much like they did on Friday against Galesburg. So not a lot stood out, but it was just a well-played game by the Panthers and a comfortable win for them on Saturday.
Friday night brings some matchups against the younger teams in the Western Big Six. You have Rock Island going to Sterling. Sterling only 5 wins this year, but a young team. How do you see Rock Island going with that one?
We mentioned some of the stuff that happened bad. I think this is a game Rocky's going to come and take some frustration out. Sterling is a team that they've got some good young players, as you mentioned. A lot of teams the teams we're seeing this weekend have some really good youth, but I think there's going to be a path where Rocky's going to be able to just kind of really lean on them and force their ball handlers to kind of be in situations that they don't want to be in. I think it's going to allow Rock Island to really have a lot of success. So that's something I look to be, when we're scrolling through while we're doing our games on Friday, I'm going to see Ken post a score of Rock Island with 2 10 or 12-0 runs in the first half. Like, all right, that makes sense, because there are some guards. Some of those younger guards for Sterling are really nice. DeAndre Mass, the freshman, is one of them. He's not young, but he's a senior. Xavier Prather, he's a kid who can score. But they really don't have, they can do stuff, but they just, it's going to be a lot coming really fast, and the ball pressure, I think, is something that Rocky's going to really be able to take advantage of.
Yeah, Sterling's a team that, at least when I seen them in what kind of the stat sheet shows, they turn it over quite a bit, and you can't turn the ball over against Rock Island. A lot of teams, even if you don't turn it over a lot, end up turning it over against Rock Island. So like Joe said, that's definitely going to be a block in the road, and the Rocks, just a chance to add a Western Big Six win to the total and try and keep up with the Maroons.
UT had Geneseo, who has a first-year head coach, and at points they look really good this year. How do you see UT playing out there?
Yeah, Geneseo started the season 6-4, and they've kind of gone up and down since, much like the Panthers, as we've kind of talked about week in, week out. But UT's going to travel to Geneseo, a team that they beat 59-33 earlier on in the season. So the Panthers, hopefully with some confidence going into that game. In the first meeting, Octavius Hickman and Josiah Mousley combined for 38 points. The way Octavius Hickman is playing right now, I think we can assume and expect a big game out of him, because he's now strung together 5, 6, or 7 straight good games, which is what the UT was kind of needing out of him in the middle part of the season, and so they've kind of started to get that, and that's been important. Now I think that X factor in this game for UT can be Josiah Massey, Jordan Massey, who he has really started to kind of hopefully get back into the swing of things, where he had a great start to the season. He had a great year last year. You expected a lot out of him this season. He's kind of hit a bump in the road the last few outings, and now going back the last couple of weeks. But there's been some good spurts in there. There's been a couple good games, and he can really knock down his shots. He's great at the free throw line. He is great defensively. So let's hope he can put all those pieces together against Geneseo, have a chance to have another possibly 18-point outing like he did last time against them. So Jordan Massey's a big guy that I think can get some confidence out of a team on Friday, against a team that he already has done some impressive things against earlier this season. And then hopefully just more comes from Octavius Hickman. And Javon McDowell can maybe step up again. Don't know of the condition of Leo Sim. They're still, he was injured the last couple of weeks, so we'll see how close he is getting. But UT's starting to get healthier. They're starting to get these guys backing out of their slumps. And as a team are scoring more points and being really sharp on each end of the floor. So hopefully just more of the same on Friday. And I think more expect, and they need more of the steadiness like we talked about they did on Friday and Saturday. Just good 32-minute efforts. And let's hope they can do that against Geneseo.
I wanted to add something talking about Geneseo. I want to give a tip of the cap to Coach Lacey and what they've been able to do, because they had, I think, 1 win combined over the last 2 years before this one, and he's done a really good job. The jolt of energy from the season all season long. I think they're around 500. I think they have 12. Or I think they're
12 and 13.
12 and 13. Okay, so I mean, obviously for them compared to the last 2 seasons, this has been an incredible year. I don't want anyone to take anything away from them. We've talked about their problem is they just don't have a depth of level of, like, their top athletes. We mentioned they've got all conference level guys on their roster. Jack Kreis and Jaden Burridge are all conference level players, and we're gonna see them on the on-call conference lists. But their depth, once you get outside of their starting 5, it's some inexperience, and this level of athlete is where they can really start to fall apart. Against UT in the first meeting, it was very interesting. The game was tight. Jaden Burridge played well. Jack Kreis really struggled against them. He struggles against some of the teams that are bigger in the conference that can kind of, because he's a kind of a wing player that really likes to get inside, and he loves to get to the free throw line. He's one of the highest free throw attempt guys in the league. So that's something he likes to do a lot. And against UT, he just wasn't able to get inside and get those mismatches. Jaden Burridge had a pretty solid game to keep them attached, but then UT was just able to avalanche them in the third quarter. So I'm interested to see, at home, Geneseo plays really well there. Should be I'm definitely thinking that could be, out of the 3 games that we have, that very well could be the most, has a good chance to be maybe the most compelling, just because Geneseo, they have been a bit of a roller coaster at time depending on the matchup, but their peak, they can be punchy with most teams. And
they can play fast at points too. And some teams that play fast against UT, UT also a team that if Andy Say wants them to play fast, they can find a way to play fast in certain points in certain games. But some teams can really speed them up and force UT to be sloppy. So the Panthers going to have to kind of avoid getting thrown into that pit on Friday.
Moline going to Alleman, who is another team that's shown good spurts at times and played Moline pretty close for the early on in their last matchup. How do you see this one going?
Give me that pen right there. It got the first game. I don't want to say it got dicey, but it was just Alden was incredibly. This is back, I think, right before the. If I'm not mistaken, it was the game before the Genesis. Yeah, it was the game right before the Illinois-Iowa shootout. They got some good youth, man. Awar's a good player. They got a couple other freshmen who get some minutes, and Awar had a really good game the first time they played. Hit some tough shots. Jack Went was good as well. And they got UT was up on them pretty big. I don't know if it was 2 Fridays ago, I believe. But
it was, let's see.
Or was it last Tuesday? But Allman, you said they cut it all the way back down to like 4 before UT closed it out.
Wow. It was 18 at halftime. It was once a 24-point UT lead in the third quarter, and by the opening minutes of the fourth quarter, it was a 4-point game. And Allman was playing without Abraham Awar and Miles Granite in that game, so that's 2 of their top 4 scorers. Yeah. So it ended up being pretty impressive from the Pioneers.
Shout out Scott Morrell.
Yeah.
And then later in the week, they went on to beat Geneseo as well.
Yeah, that was their first conference win, or second, I believe, because they beat Sterling a couple weeks ago. So they're finding some success, and shout out to Scotty Morrell as well. They've done a good job to navigate. They've got some younger guys they like. The guys we talk about, Granette and Went, are 3. I believe Went's a senior, if I'm wrong. Or is a junior? Yeah. So those guys are 2, 3-year starters. They've got some. They've been around for a bit now, and they were able to hit some good. Their shot making is what kept them attached in the first meeting. Moline, hopefully for them, this is a game where their offense can really kind of get back into a rhythm. Brady Welch, as we said, this is going to be a game. Of course, the game plan's always he's a marked man. No guy has a target on his back. I mean, this is Brady. I love you, but no target is big. The target for Welch is probably bigger than him. Yes. Let's just be real. That's how big the target is for him going after the teams are hunting him every game. But I think this is a game where the pressure is going to be there, but it might not be as you're not going to be dealing with 6'8", 6'6" guys that are just in your face trying to chase you around screens for 4 quarters. So I think he's going to be able to get a little bit free in that aspect. They do have some good defenders. I'm not saying they don't, Allman, but they're still very tough. But I think it might be just advantageous for Moline in some aspects. Josh Hendricks was really good in the first game. Would love to see Ami Singer or Alante Anderson kind of have themselves a really good game as well for the Maroons. And it's fascinating, man. We're going to be, of course, score watching these last 4 games. It's as of right now, 13 days as of today. 13 days from now, we'll be handing out a conference championship, and it very well could be two conference championships. So the scoreboard watching will be immense over the next couple weeks, that's for sure.
Season coming to a close, sadly, and fast, very fast. And we'll see you at the games on Friday night and right back here next Wednesday.